I should have like some walk-up music or something. That's kind of cool.
I feel like you should. Yeah, absolutely.
I think.
Just a tiny bit of swagger, not too
I
much.
mean, could you imagine having that at the office?
I mean,
Here comes Collin. Here comes
Yeah.
Collin.
yeah, right. I mean, who doesn't want some good walk-in music when you come into the office?
Oh, now, are you a big football guy?
Yeah, college football. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see the Seahawks stuff behind you, which of course, Idaho's big Seahawks fan, but
Yeah, I mean that's like, what else do you have up there?
not
In
much.
terms of-
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
got a
like
blue
for the
turf.
pro stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, nothing pro. Everything's college, and like, we have a semi-pro hockey team. It's pretty much
exactly.
our
That's
thing.
what I'm saying. So your Seahawks probably get some pretty good play up there, and you
They
guys
sure
have.
do.
And you guys, it looks like you guys, the Boise, y'all are set up for a first round bye, maybe.
Yeah, I saw
And,
that. Yeah. I went to Boise State. I've been a Notre Dame fan since probably before I could walk, so I kind of lean more on that side. But I do pay attention to Boise. Yeah, they're doing really well.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
Notre Dame are playing
deal is
next
with the
year.
blue with the blue field. I don't quite get that, but whatever. That's
Yeah, no, it doesn't make a ton of sense. You're correct. It's
it's a little.
Yeah.
It's a little bit. I guess it's kind of their branding thing.
Yeah, they definitely stand by that pretty heavily.
Yeah, I think that's their thing. I think my logo is still a little bit too big. Let me see if I can move this down a little bit. There we go.
There we go.
It's looking a little bit better. It's so wonky.
Yeah.
So you just had a job change, and I want to just, because I haven't been on the market in probably 5 something plus years, so I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious, like, what was it like?
Oh man. So number one, I was incredibly fortunate. I was a full referral into someone that through someone I worked with, and so I didn't have to do really any application or any of that stuff. I mean, I have a lot of strong opinions on candidate experience. I think the job market right now is crap. It's tough out there. I'm
That's
thrilled.
why I really kind of was hoping
Yeah.
to get your opinion on that, on the whole candidate experience.
It's
We've
terrible.
had other.
It's so
awful, yeah.
bad. And the hard part is a couple years ago it was a candidate market, right? Everyone's throwing money at candidates. The candidate experience was still shit then.
Yeah.
And the employers knew they needed to change that up, and then they got to kick the can down the road because now it's an employer market. And now they're like, well, we don't have to do anything now.
We don't
Like,
need to put money into.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, that's a bit of a hot take. A lot of the layoffs that happened the last 3 years, I was part of this 3 years ago. I got laid off as a director of TA. A lot of layoffs were in the recruiter or TA space. And my hot take on this is that I'm hoping that some of those, especially internal TA, would realize how fucking horrible the candidate experience is when they apply, and how much being ghosted sucks.
Right. Like
Having
now
no
you're thrown out to the
transparency.
wolves.
Now you have to see what it's like as a candidate, and I'm hoping that, of course, those folks have found roles, but they're taking that experience that they had as a candidate and applying that to wherever the hell they are today.
I mean, just look at any internal surveys or anything. It's all, the experience is
terrible.
awful.
Well, and then one thing that I did a keynote address for a Talent Partners event for internal TA folks back in June, and a lot of research did with that piece. And the research done was, some of the numbers that really stuck out were like 70% of candidates will fall off of in the middle of the process because they feel like they aren't being told, they're not enough transparency. They don't know where their application's at. They're not hearing stuff.
Right.
That younger generation, Gen Z especially, and younger millennials are fine walking away if the process is crap. And I love that.
They're just like, I'm just going to ghost this.
Yeah, they're like, yeah.
Well, you know what it is? It is sort of a, well, it's not sort of, it's an audition.
Yeah. And so for so long, because our generation and generations before us, hey, I'm just so thrilled that you guys are giving me the time. Oh my God, I can't, I just need to find this job. I'm so excited to work for you. And now, even in this market, the candidates are not in the front seat. They're still saying, hey, this experience has been shit in this whole application. Like, I can't imagine it's going to be any better if I'm your employee.
They're probably right.
And yeah, exactly. I don't think they're wrong.
So
yeah.
So you guys, is it in Boise that you have this Disrupt HR?
Yeah, this Disrupt HR
conference?
event. It was in Boise. It's a one night event. They do it in cities all across the U.S. And the whole point of it is to just kind of shake up and disrupt the HR space. So to kind of make you rethink the way your thing's doing. I did a talk 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, that was, you suck at recruiting. and it was telling internal recruiters how terrible they are at their job. And why
Tell
they're
them what
terrible.
you really think,
Yeah,
Collin.
exactly. The actual name of the talk was you effing suck at recruiting. So this last year I got to be the MC of the event. You get if you're not familiar with disrupt events, there you get 5 minutes. You have a new slide every 15 seconds, so you can't really like put much on a slide, like as far as graphs or data or anything like that. So that's there, and then you've got to just kind of have an idea that kind of shakes stuff up. And so it's
Do they rate like which ideas they like the best, or does it
they
just
don't,
kind of
but I
one after
like
the
that
next?
idea. I would love if there was like a running tally where people could
Yeah, some kind of a rank. You know what?
Yeah.
That's kind of
That's where my head would go. Is like, let's have a scoreboard of who's
and
winning.
have the scoreboard, right? Everyone
Yeah.
comes up. It's kind of like look, it's like speed dating, right?
Yeah.
You're going to sit down, you're going to talk to all these people, and you go, you know what? Those are the three that I like the most.
Mm-hmm.
So whichever three got the most votes, they get to maybe go up and go a little more in depth. Maybe you do you do a Q&A with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you emceed the event this year.
Yeah, we had 11 speakers. It was great event.
Some general themes that came out of that. What do you think?
There's always a lot of like self-help stuff that comes out, like how to take care of yourself better, how to prevent burnout. There was a few talks on that. There was a few talks on really looking at your employees and leveraging their strengths and weaknesses, which I think is really important. There were some good talks in that regard that I thought really resonated with the crowd. I'm not sure anybody did
Self-help
anything.
I've heard more of. I think there's more talk about that. See, I'm Gen X, and I think the problem with Gen X is that we kind of poo-poo a lot of that soft, fuzzy stuff. It's kind of like, you know what, just suck it up. And that's probably not a strategy.
But here's the thing, like I'm pretty close to X, and I kind of on that cusp there, and I kind of have that same mentality as well. Like,
Kind of like, look, we're here to work.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying don't be empathetic.
no, I hear what you're saying.
But it's like, yeah, I probably would be a horrible person to put in there. They did the disrupt HR.
No, that's the best part. You'd be great.
Maybe that's probably what you're looking for, right?
You just say, you don't need self-help. Forget about it. Do something. Do better. Do hard. I don't know.
Yeah, like meditate at home. Just get yourself right, and let's go to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying don't be empathetic. All right, so you go through this job change, and you're totally fortunate. You get totally
very, very fortunate. Yeah,
You just got
and I wasn't
walked
even
into the decision maker.
Yeah, I was well employed and just had another opportunity be presented to me. I mean, it was a great situation for everyone involved, and incredibly fortunate. I've been very fortunate to be able to leverage my network to find me employment in the past. I think it's an underused resource that some people find. I think some people get really kind of self-conscious of it. Like, well, I don't want to reach out and bother them. Like,
It's like, wait a minute. What are you doing? Like, that's one of the benefits of having a network. Some of the people, so when I was an executive recruiter, and I would, you get to know people pretty well when they're going through a job search. And some of the people you've had an opportunity to help maybe multiple times.
Yeah.
So honestly, they're like friends, and I remember this one lady, Connie, one of the things she told me, she said, the biggest mistake I made was I was so busy working, I really never developed my network well enough. And when she hit the market, her company eventually got acquired. Actually, the company went through a pretty bad downturn, and so she ended up taking a package. So anyway, she's on the market, and she realizes how hard it is. And she's like, why didn't I spend a little more effort kind of watering and nurturing these relationships? So it's a hard thing to do. So if you're listening to this and you've got a full-time job and you're looking at, okay, what can I do differently next year, spend a little bit of time
absolutely.
making more friends.
And just make decent connections, when you're at, I know sometimes they're a bit of a drag, but, there's always networking groups, there's always Chamber of Commerce events. There's always things like that. Those can leverage into more.
God, you're not going to make them go that low, are you?
I mean,
people are going to like cringe when they hear that.
No, but I think it's a good place
to get the right ones
to hone your skills, right? So you know how to make a quick impact. And two, you got to check the ego at the door. I mean, me reaching out to someone to ask them if they can introduce me to someone else, that can help me find a role. If they don't get back to me, it's okay. They're not going to look at me as a weirdo or anything. And quite honestly, I don't care. I'm trying to better myself, find a better situation for myself, and I'm not going to have any shame associated with that. So you got to kind of check your ego at the door and say, hey, I'm out here to try to better myself. And some people, you never know what their situation is either. It's not that they don't want to help you. Maybe they're just really busy, or maybe they kind of glanced over your message and didn't get back to it. I mean, you just never know. So don't read into it. Just keep chugging along. I think there's huge, huge value in all of that.
Yeah, and if you've spent any time trying to build your LinkedIn network out, that's the time to, that's the time to use it. So I had the experience when I first joined Timpl. Well, we were Joinus at the time. We went through a name change, it became Timpl. We were doing a lot of work for a really big global international company, and they were headquartered in California. And we were initially working one-on-one with all the hiring leaders. And then they came to us and they said, well, there's going to be some changes here in terms of how we manage our vendors.
Yeah.
And we were one of, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 that were managing their contingent workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember, it might have been, I don't know if it was Workday or Field Glass. I forget which one it was, but they put in a big VMS.
Sure.
And that was like my firsthand experience of working as a vendor, kind of, plugging into a VMS. And now that you're kind of getting your feet wet with network platform, a VMS, was there something kind of unique about either the company or the industry that you thought this is the right move for you?
Yeah. So, boy,
and maybe back up. I kind of just touched on VMS. Do you want to just give everyone kind of the 30,000 if they're not familiar with VMS?
Yeah. So VMS, if you ask a recruiter, most of us will say it is, so I sat at a desk for 10 years, recruiting, and it's hard not to call VMS a big black hole. They just kind of can be, right? I mean,
you can feel like that because you're not getting feedback. You're not getting the timely feedback.
I'm talking to the recruiter. Like, I'm the recruiter. I submitted 3 people to XYZ company, and
Zip.
I don't know. No, I never hear the word. Never even see.
Yeah, we heard no. We don't like them.
Yeah. So
what changes do I make in my process? Right. Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even hear that. Sometimes the status never even gets updated. I mean, it's the black hole, just like it is for job seekers sometimes. So VMS don't in the recruiting space do not have, they can be kind of a 4-letter word, right? What drew me to network is a few things. 1, smaller company. I really like smaller companies. 2 was their approach is a little bit different. They are very shift based, like frontline type work, hospitality, things of that nature. Kind of high turnover roles, manufacturing, etc. But their ability to allow you to leverage your own internal talent pool. So you can already have predefined talent, people that have worked for you in the past that would come back. And before you immediately go out to an agency, you can leverage that pool. So for those that don't know how VMS works, pretty straightforward. A big company will come in and say, we're going to use a VMS. Instead of having individual contracts with 15 different recruiting suppliers, we're going to have one contract. We're going to use Fieldglass. We're going to have a managed service provider, an MSP, run the program for us. Everything will run through them. They're the central point. So they're up here. The second, I'm the company, I post the job, goes into the VMS. The VMS will then disperse out to tier 1 suppliers, tier 2, tier 3, etc. Those suppliers, those agencies can then submit their candidates to the center. MSP reviews them, decides which ones it likes the most, pushes those to the hiring manager, and manages the process. Typically, this is all for contingent labor, 90% of it. So that's a VMS in a nutshell. Where network comes in that I liked about them, because if I'm honest, VMS can be pretty boring tech. And I'm going to get some flack for that because I have a lot of good friends in the VMS space. But it's a relatively boring tech that's been around for about 20 years. The reason I like network is because it was going to allow you to leverage known talent first. This is probably one of my favorite analogies. If I need to buy some milk, am I going to grab my keys, hop in my car, and drive to the store to buy milk, or am I going to open my fridge? Let's open the fridge, right? Like, maybe I don't need to
check your own cupboard.
Yeah, and so instead of immediately running out and posting a job, right? And then this works a few different ways. Instead of running out and posting a job, paying money for a job board, search your own database of applicants for the last year. Or, if you use a VMS tool, why pay an exorbitant 40-50% to an agency when you can do payroll for 20% of a candidate that's already worked for you?
Yeah.
So there's initial value in that. And that's kind of what drew me to the space, because again, it's never been a super exciting tech for me, but this different kind of approach kind of drew me in.
Well, and I noticed that you guys were kind of highlighting the benefits of AI, and I think every company is trying to figure out like how do we leverage AI. And
Yeah.
I think for the common person, the average person who hears AI, I sometimes would just refer to it as just think of it as like how can you automate a manual process?
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
mean, that's one way to think of it, right? Because
Mhm.
it's kind of like, what is AI? It means so many different things, but typically what it does mean, it just means you're automating. You've got a
Correct.
really smart digital assistant that can think
Mhm.
for you and kind of follow your processes. And it
Yeah.
looked like you guys were really trying to leverage some of the new AI tech.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
probably what your guys would tell you.
Yeah.
They go,
Yeah.
Collin, look, we're not that dull. We are incorporating AI.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that incorporation is I think it's pretty great, right? So that's you've got this internal talent pool. I post a job for a manufacturing associate or soldering tech or whoever that might be. Our tech will look and see who do we have. There it can be three different buckets. They're a solid person, they're an outstanding person, or they're an epic person. So like 3 stars, they're 1, 2, or 3 stars. They're all rehireable. They're all great people. Well, I only have the budget for an outstanding person. So it'll take all of the information that it's getting from the JD, the skills needed, etc., and then it's going to compare that against the internal talent pool. It's going to rank that talent pool accordingly, putting, in this case, outstanding first, then epic, then good, whatever that might be. And then it will stagger invites out to them. Because it doesn't just immediately broadcast to all 50 that it qualified. It'll say,
No, because you don't want
go one
the
at a time.
you don't want the one star to reply first.
First, exactly. So I'm going to give the higher end ones a few more minutes to get back to me if they want this role. And so I will stagger all of that over the course of however much time I have. If I've got 4 days, I'll spend 25% one day doing that. The second day, then I might go out to my tier 1 agencies, then my tier 2 agencies, etc. So that part I really liked. I liked the AI being used to read the JD, understand the skills, stack rank the candidates according to your budgetary restraints as well, right? I'm not going to reach out to someone that wants $40 an hour when your max is 30.
Right.
So I know that too. And then staggering that out so I can make sure they're all being notified of that role that's open. And again, not getting them all in at a payroll rate versus a full-blown agency rate.
One of the things I've discovered with the advent of AI and this automation, and that is a fantastic, really smart way of going about trying to fill a job, is this kind of auto matching. If you don't have good, clean data, this is going to be very challenging. So
Yeah.
I know you're just still in your honeymoon, but I imagine that's going to be one of those maybe uncomfortable conversations with some of those new clients. Like, well,
Mm-hmm.
we have this capability, but when we
Yeah.
look at your database, I mean, it's
Yeah,
a
not
hot
garbage.
mess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, are you do they have like internal like resources to help clean it up, or do you push them out to a third party provider? Because as you say, if
Yeah.
it's not clean,
If it's not clean, it's not worth it. Yeah.
then it's not worth it. So what's the solution there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a huge point. Number one, old decrepit data is worthless, right? Hey, here's a list of people that have applied for a job in the last 6 years. Great, I only want to see 3 months or 6 months. That's ridiculous, right?
Mm.
The big thing that we'll use for some of those internal talent pools too will be candidates you've worked with in the past, employee referrals, right? Let's start seeding it with that. Let's not
Yeah.
immediately just run to this database because
Yeah, kind of segment it, proportion it
yeah,
out.
the,
But
the
I think you need that human touch to look at it to see these are our fields. This is what we want.
yeah,
We got to go through. So I mean, I do think you're going to spend some time and some money, more than likely,
yeah.
to
Yeah.
prepare to have someone like Network come in.
Well, and let's be honest, most internal programs don't do anything with their internal database, right? I mean, I posted something the other day
It's
on
not.
LinkedIn, and it's a point that drives me nuts. And I don't think a lot of candidates realize it, is that if I applied to a job today, even one of your jobs, Tony, let's say you're still recruiting, I apply to your job, but you've already got 2 candidates interviewing, you're you're
I
not gonna look
mean,
at me. You're not. And that
the
and
only okay, so the only way I'm looking at you is that you're what were the rankings you had? What
like,
was it?
yeah, it was. We have epic, outstanding.
So Epic. Epic is the best, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that to me, that's the trained eye. The trained eye sees an Epic, and
True.
you're an Epic. You're an Epic. So I'm calling you regardless. But that's
But
only
but
because
that's also because you came from an agency space.
uh-huh.
If you're an internal
See,
recruiter and I've got 50 open recs,
you don't
and
do
I've already
that.
got 2 people interviewing for this rec, I don't care if
That
20
you
people apply
that's
today.
covered.
I've already moved on.
You've moved on.
And to put salt on that wound, let's say a similar role like that opens up in 3 months. I'm not even, most internal recruiters are pretty lazy and they won't even go to that open role and see the applicants that they didn't look at before and reach
Right.
out to them.
And copy them over and go, hey, we already have
Correct.
these people.
And they won't
Yeah. Yeah.
even 90% of the time, or some of them don't even know how to Boolean search, won't even go into their own candidate database and run a search on that job to see if there's
This
anybody
is
there
like
to
a
reach out
super
to.
uncomfortable conversation. I'm just like, God,
Yeah.
how could you? Yeah, I mean, I
And
was not
because we
to,
came from that
I
agency
was running
space,
circles around. There
yeah.
was like about a year and a half period that I worked for a really big company here in town, and I was a sore thumb. I stood out in there, just the way I thought, the way I
Yeah.
approached everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
agency people. Listen, number one advice: if you're hiring an internal team, try to get someone from who was in an external agency.
Absolutely.
Try.
But do you remember about 10, 15 years ago, internal roles would even have in there like not looking for someone with agency experience? They were scared
It's
of them, which blew my mind because I'm like, they're going to come in and actually teach you that recruiting is a verb, which means it's an action, and there should be outbound reaching. It shouldn't just be, I'm
preach
not
it,
an order
man. Preach
taker.
it.
And that was part of my talk last year at Disrupt HR was, those of you that are scared of AI, if all you do all day is review applications, coordinate interviews, and do some recruiter screens,
Guess what?
you're going to lose your job.
You're not going to be around.
Yeah.
You're
You're
not going to
not.
be
Like, you are
around.
doing you're an order taker. If you're not doing anything to go out and find candidates, build relationships, ask for referrals, get some rapport. I mean, I imagine you were the same way, and you mentioned it earlier. One of the biggest compliments I had as a recruiter is a candidate calling me to say, Collin, I just like interviewed for this other job. It was awesome. Like, here's the benefits. It's so great. And they might be in the running for one of my jobs, and I would be the first one to congratulate them. Be like, dude,
Nope.
and they would even ask me for my
Oh,
advice.
totally, totally.
Hey, what do you think of this? Like, I was like, dude, this sounds like
That's
a
when you know
awesome
you've
opportunity. Yeah.
like transcended your position and now
Yeah.
you are a peer to them.
Correct. Yeah. And yes, would we lose out on some money? Sure, but I don't care.
No.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, they've got to do what they have
If
to
they
do.
got a better job, they're
You
going
know,
to take a better job. You
well,
don't be a fool. They're
they
going to
got to
take
put
it.
food on their table. They got to pay their mortgage. They got to be happy.
Exactly.
I'm not going to fault someone for that. Just like I'm
Nope.
never going to fault anyone for, I make an offer and they counter me and want to make more money. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that part of the stuff I really loved about it. And I love staying in HR tech because I still love the recruiting piece. I just, I did my 10 years. I got my stripes and I'm happy to move on. But they still
Well,
see those struggles today, and it drives me up a wall when I see it too.
have you seen or is there any kind of HR tech that is maybe coming down the line that you're kind of excited about that we should be looking at?
Yeah, there's some good stuff coming out.
I know that's such a
Yeah,
softball.
it is. It is.
It's
It
like,
is.
wait a minute, like what area? Like, pick a. I mean, obviously from the
I'll
client
tell you a
side.
space, and I don't need to name names, but I will tell you a space that needs to be looked at more, and it is candidate marketing automation. And what I mean by that is you should treat candidates and talent like customers. You need to understand that this experience that they're having is a reflection of your brand and how you represent yourself. If I go to your website and I see your 4 core values, whatever the hell those might be, they're all, let's be honest, they're all regurgitated ones all over the place. But If I go
AI
through
generated.
right, if I go through your application and candidate process, am I going to see those benefits or those values come through? Probably not. So
Yeah.
what I mean by the piece of the tech to watch out for is you should be putting when a candidate applies, there's some really good tech out there where I can identify, I can make criteria. Hey, here's a candidate journey for candidates that have these 3 skills in this location or whatever that might be. And then I'm going to send them a few emails. I'm going to send them some text messages. I'm going to send them a survey. I want them to know about my company, my brand, what types of roles we have, what our culture's like, why they want to come work here. I want to keep them engaged so that let's be honest, the experience with the brand right now is, thanks so much for applying, Tony. We're going to be too lazy to actually look to see if there's other jobs you might be a fit for. But if you want to take some time, here's a link to our career site for other jobs you could apply for. And then 6 months later, that job somehow closes in some archaic horde system, Workday, and then you just get a rejection email 6 months later, right? Like that, and that's your experience with the brand. It's the
You
terrible.
have literally just described, I think, every single. I don't know a company that has managed what do you call it? The candidate marketing experience?
Yeah, like automated candidate marketing. I mean,
Automated candidate marketing.
just let people know about your brand, why they want to come work there. I mean, give them a reason to be excited that when an opportunity arises, they want to apply.
All right, so let's kind of walk through. Like, this is I love the topic, and for anyone who's been in HR or tried to do any kind of recruiting, you know how hard it is to get an epic or even just a really good
Yeah,
candidate to apply. They don't get the job. Let's
silver
say
medalist for crying out loud. Yeah,
exactly. So you need a strategy to keep that person thinking about your company for the next job, the next job, the next job. Or frankly, maybe they'll just say something good about you at a cocktail party. Maybe they'll refer their friend over or something. So
yeah.
what do you think that software would be looking at? What are some of the criteria it would look at? What kind of information would it be sending you or the candidate, do you think?
Yeah, a company that does this pretty well. Zillow does a great job of this. You apply for a job on Zillow, and I commend go do it, even if it's something. Just apply to get on board.
All right, I'm going to check this out. Zillow. I mean, I use Zillow.
Yeah, everybody does. And
For my house hunt.
they do a great job of this. It's a little more newslettery. I think it's better to be more targeted, but it spends some time to tell a candidate why they want to come work there. The younger generation cares less about Apple and Google and Facebook and Meta, all these big companies. They want to work for a company that they think is going to treat them well and that they're going to have the benefits that they value. So they want to, how are you going to kind of convey that to them aside from a job description that they applied for, right? Be going out to them, and the best part is the software that allows you to do this stuff is minimal lift. Once you build the emails out, once you build the comms out, whatever it's going to be, it's set it and forget it. Set the criteria, right? Like this isn't a map.
Can you manage that through an applicant tracking system? Do you think that could be like an ATS?
Yeah. There's some of the tech that does this will integrate with your ATS. Yeah.
Yeah, because like we use Bullhorn, and I'm thinking that could be.
They have a product called Herefish that does that. Yeah.
Herefish.
Mm-hmm. They purchased that, I don't know, several years ago. But
oh my God, they have purchased. They
oh, I know. You can't
buy
keep track of it all. Yeah.
They buy everything.
I know. I was on
you
a.
could almost manage that. I'm just thinking. Okay, if I'm very frugal when it comes to, I try to figure out how can I solve it without spending a lot of money, and I'm thinking there could be a way for me just to build a workflow.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I mean, it's just like a sequencing workflow,
exactly what it is.
Okay.
And then if they do an action, they can bump out of it or whatever that might be. Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, once they apply, well, now, would you take a look at that? I guess you would need to kind of know who that person is, right? Because
you already do. Because they've applied, you scrape their resume.
Right.
You see their skill sets. You have a smart enough tool in there that knows.
So that's what it should be. It should be based on like maybe function. You could do it maybe by function, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone applies to a sales role. We're going to dump them into this sales engagement, long-term sales engagement.
Let them. Hey, Yeah, read some of our great reviews on Glassdoor from our sales reps. Here's the list of them. Here's what we do differently, and here's our even it's okay to expose your comp plan a little bit for commission. Just say,
Well,
yeah,
why not?
why wouldn't you?
Why not? They're gonna look. Let
Be
them either be
transparent.
interested in your comp plan or not be interested. Guess what? If they're not interested, you just saved yourself how much time
Exactly.
of taking them to the final and then talking about money, and they're not interested and they leave. You just waste.
Everyone's time. Yeah.
I mean, here's a pro tip: share the most important information up front.
Yeah. If you are still not putting your salary bands on your job descriptions, you should be taken out in the field
If
and old yeller.
if you've got 2 or 3 super important things, just go ahead and just
Correct.
let's make sure yeah.
Well,
Um,
let's think too, right? I consider myself very fortunate having been a recruiter for so long. When I get on those first recruiter screens as a candidate, I'm asking about salary. Most people don't, right? They think it's a little taboo. It's too soon. Like, no, no, no. First off, it's great always talking one-to-one to a recruiter. I'm always
oh, if
thrilled
you're
about
talking
that.
to a recruiter, let it rip.
Yeah,
Let
and
it
my
rip.
thing is,
Your
I already
HR, your
know.
manager,
Correct. And I already know if
probably.
they're a good recruiter, they want to talk about that too. Because I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste the hiring manager's time. If we're 50 grand off on base, then we're good. You're not going to be able to come up that high. But I
Let's
don't need to find that out when I'm talking to the hiring manager for 45 minutes. That's shit.
No,
But,
that's not a smart.
but because of our background, we're more inept to talk about that in that 15-minute recruiter screen. Most people would be terrified to bring that up.
Yeah. So that's a cool. Okay, so that's just going back to the HR tech or just
Yeah.
the technology that you're interested in. Is this what do you candidate marketing
Marketing
automation?
automation, it's working on
I
that
like it.
employer branding piece. And because there's this tech out there, like I said, this isn't a massive lift. This isn't additional lift on your TA or marketing. Like, hey, marketing, can you help us out? We've already probably built a ton of emails and newsletter, whatever it might be. We've built this
Right.
stuff already. Let's get this uploaded. Let's get the content written. Let's get all of that done. And then, boom, set it and forget it. And it can be, like you said, it can be people that apply to these types of roles. It can be people who come in and have these 3 skills in this location, who like have these certifications, whatever that might be. You can set all these things up and then be pushing marketing automation out to them. I think it's a huge gap in the
I love that idea, and I'm I'm head of marketing now for
yeah,
this pretty good sized staffing company, and all across all of our branches, we have some of them that they do a lot of work with forklift drivers,
sure.
and it's a niche. It's a niche. It's
Hmm.
very dangerous. Lots of safety issues that go on, and you can lose a client or you can lose your insurance if you have too many
Oh yeah,
claims against you.
oh yeah,
So, but to your point though, if someone were to apply to a job and they don't get the job and they've got that some kind of a forklift certification, you could drop them into some sort of a sequence
hmm
and just talk to them specifically about all the benefits of being a forklift driver.
correct.
Have you kept your certifications up? Have you, do you have your OSHA 30? You could go through all
Correct.
these, and suddenly you're providing them value.
And help
I
upskill.
guarantee you, I'm going to tell you,
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah.
I don't want to say nobody. I'm going to say it. I don't think anybody is doing. Very few people are doing that. Very few
Right.
companies.
They don't see the value in it. But what they fail to understand is that I'm not asking more of you to do it, but you will reap the benefits of it. I mean, when you pick up the phone to call someone and you are not a Fortune 100 company and you tell me you're from such an ABC Manufacturing, I I don't know who the hell you are. I don't know anything
No.
about you. Oh, well, you applied to a job 6 months ago. Cool. I applied to 100 jobs in the last month. I'm gonna remember the ones that I'm gonna, even if I don't click on the emails, I might notice the emails coming in. Oh, you know what? Yeah, you guys have sent me some stuff. Okay, yeah, what's going on? You guys got some roles? All right, I'm listening.
Yeah, you've kind of kept that. You've kept
Top of
that
mind,
can
yeah.
top of mind. Exactly. That's good. But technically, a VMS is a technology.
Hmm.
Have they kind of shared with you why they think large companies, mid-sized companies should be using a VMS? Are there some like definite pros out
Yeah,
there? Like maybe let's kind of walk through that for
yeah,
people who, you know, want to understand some pros cons.
Yeah, a VMS tool works great if you have multiple suppliers, and it allows you to have especially a central place for invoicing, for timekeeping, and payroll.
Oh, that's got to be
So
a huge time
it's
saver.
huge, right? So if
You're not running down checking
correct,
invoices with that vendor, that vendor, that vendor. You have one point of contact for all your contingency.
correct. Hmm.
That's huge.
Yeah, and so think of it too, right? VMS used to be pretty much it used incredibly expensive and so really it was only something really large corporations looked into, Fortune 500s. Now that there's so many smaller players, these mid markets can look into it, right? Hey, I've got 3 warehouses. My hiring managers kind of all deal with the different suppliers. We get 10 different invoices every month from all the different suppliers. We got to get them paid. It's such a pain. There are solutions now for companies that size to come to some smaller VMS tools that can help with that, that aren't as incredibly expensive, that you can actually, if you pencil it out, you can see that you're going to save money doing this and you're going to centralize everything. Right? It's going to go out, it's going to find that candidate, or the candidate gets submitted. The candidate's going to keep their time keeping's there. The invoicing generates, their payroll generates, and you pay the invoice, and it's done.
Yeah.
You aren't chasing things around. You're not calling the hiring manager and be like, why did you use XYZ stat? Like, we've never used them before. Oh, yeah, I thought I'd give them a try. Like, well, we have to go through this whole process before we can even send an invoice. And how are we going to, can go on and on. But this is a great way to centralize that. And, on the network side, if you're using shifts, like that's kind of where we sit, is in that shift space, leveraging, if you're doing shift work, if you've got
You want to explain? I know what you're talking about, but do you want to explain what you mean by shift work?
Yeah, so anywhere where you're using shifts, so manufacturing environments, distribution centers, hospitality, catering companies, where hey, I need
Day
3
shift, night
bartenders,
shift, first shift, second shift, third
and
shift, that
shift
kind of stuff.
differentials and overtime, like doing all of that, just so you kind of understand where that sits, and having that all centralized is massive, right? And having the ability that a hiring manager can pull their phone out, hit it on an app because they just heard Joey is going to be out sick again tomorrow. I need someone to replace him. I can go in there and I can put a booking in for a shift tomorrow, and it goes out to my suppliers, and someone shows up tomorrow to fill that shift because Joey's out sick.
I wonder how difficult is it for the company that's signed on with a VMS to influence what companies go into the VMS. I guess
You
it's
mean like
maybe,
different like the supplier, like how do you pick the right suppliers?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean we can help with that, absolutely, give you kind of just best practices, ones you should be going for and ones you should be going against. I mean, let's be honest, any supplier wants to be involved in that program.
They do. I mean, they want a piece of a potential piece
Of
of the
course.
action for sure.
One other piece, let's be real here too. Instead of having 5 different suppliers on 5 different rates, you say, here's my rate. You want to be in my program, this is the agency rate.
Right.
Take it or leave
That's
it.
how it was. That's what we're used to. It's
Yeah.
and and newsflash, it's lower than what you
Oh, of course
would.
it is.
It's lower than what you normally would be getting if you were
Yeah.
going one on one.
Yep.
Well,
So
what do you is it? What do you? I tell you what, I do think there is a benefit for an agency, and that is if you do a great job with one client that the VMS is with. If that VMS is with multiple clients, I think you would have an opportunity to piggyback into other
absolutely.
companies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think that'd be the sell.
Well, especially when you're talking kind of the VMS players that are in that mid space, because we've got good relationship with our clients. If you're a Fortune 100, and yeah, I've got a great relationship with Beeline, I've got a great relationship with Fieldglass, they're not going to help walk you into another program. Your advantage will be that you can go to another program, find out they're in Fieldglass, and be like, hey, I know how Fieldglass works because we use it. I mean, does that give you a leg up?
It's very yeah.
Maybe a couple toes up. I wouldn't say a full leg, but helps.
Yeah.
When you're at the smaller ones, and I mean, I'm still talking larger companies here, just brands that you're not familiar with. Yeah, like a smaller company could help walk you in, because we would be facilitating conversations where the client might say, hey, do you have any good, like, we're having a hard time finding robotics people.
Right.
Do you know any agencies out there that, like, yeah, we have another client that does robotics, and like they have an agency, and that's all that agency does is robotics people nationwide. So yeah.
And I would imagine too, there's a level of comfort there for the VMS to know, we know the management, we know the recruiters, they've they've been successful for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
because ultimately, you know, when the shit rolls downhill, it goes to you.
Yeah.
Of course, you push it down, but I mean, you're the brunt. You're the brunt of that client's either excitement or, you know,
Yeah.
disappointment with what's happening in staffing.
Absolutely.
So you've been there for what, for a couple months now. How long?
Just a month, just a little under a month. Yeah, it's been good.
So how long is the official honeymoon? Do you think? What do you think? How
I
long?
think I'm gonna be good till the first of the year, right? I mean, it's hard
Well,
to.
that's
I
a
mean,
short honeymoon, Collin.
it
You should have
is.
negotiated for a longer
Well, I
one.
know. I've earned it. No, it's funny, right? Like I'm really enjoying everything now, and I mean, you know, it's just that time of year, but I
Oh my
think,
God, everyone's out. Listen, I mean,
yeah,
you've got golf clubs in the back. I mean, what
I know, yeah,
I
and
think we
snow
need
on
to,
the ground. So I haven't come to terms with a lot of things recently. So
yeah, you need to come to terms. Like you need to swap those clubs out for another sport.
yeah, we're working on it. I'll have my snowboard up there here once, you know, I get some time to head up on the hill. But yeah, I'm excited. I like the different take on what network's trying to achieve here. I really like the CEO there, and my VP of sales is great. So I'm really
Oh,
kind
that's
of
great.
excited to see where that goes. I know they're all just chomping at the bit, and like I said, it's just that time of year, right? Like, I mean, it's just hard to get a lot of commitments for demos.
It's hard. It's hard,
But it's a
hey,
great time for me to be here learning. So
hey, listen, that's why you're making the big bucks, man. You're going to be up there, hopefully setting up some new client relationships,
yeah,
managing some new clients.
yeah.
So you got any big plans for the upcoming holidays there, Colin?
Just staying close and probably a lot of skiing. That's my plan. Yeah,
Ski bum. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
It's unbelievable. Well, listen, it's good to catch up with you again, and you know, discover a little bit more about network and kind of shoot the shit with an industry vet.
Thanks, Tony. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll absolutely have you again when you're out of the honeymoon period, and
In the trenches, I'll be ready.
we'll talk through the trenches. Yeah, we'll talk through the challenges that you're facing.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you,
All
Tony.
right, stand by.